quick, click, quick, 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 click, quick, click. Okay. Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Gab. I'm your host, Gabby Lundy. If you haven't seen part 1 of my disability representation videos, make sure to click on the link below and watch that first. And today what we're going to do is a part 2 to my disability representation video, because I didn't get the chance to get to some of my examples. And the 3 examples I want to talk about today are Glee, Switched at Birth, and Speechless. And these are more modern examples because they started in 2010 and run to the present. Some of them are newer, but these are pretty recent in terms of the last 7 years. And so I'm going to start off with the oldest, Glee. And I'm not going to talk about Artie when I talk about Glee because I know that sometimes that's the first association people go to when they think about people with disabilities in Glee. But Artie isn't played by an actor with disabilities, and I think that as part of good representation for people with disabilities, we want people who actually have these disabilities or have experience with people with disabilities to play these characters. And sometimes Glee gets a little too issue-based. And with that I mean they focus so much on that one facet of identity that they don't fully develop characters besides that. And they fix that a little bit as they go on, but sometimes they just dwell on it too much or use too many stereotype jokes, and I don't think that's really productive. And so who I do want to talk about on Glee is Becky. And Becky is played by Lauren Potter. Becky is a Cheerio, which is their cheerleaders. She's the assistant to the coach. And Becky has Down syndrome. And Lauren Potter has Down syndrome too, the actress who plays her. And I think that Becky is given a lot of really funny lines, and I think that the show does a good job of painting her as a normal high school student while also tying in the aspects of people treating her differently because she has Down syndrome, and overall I think it's a pretty good representation. I did only see the first half of Glee, so I don't know if Becky's character changed or became more stereotypical or something like that, but from the couple episodes I saw that had Becky in them, it was really good representation. And the next example I want to talk about is Switched at Birth. And Switched at Birth was on ABC Family, I think that's called Freeform now, and Switched at Birth has a lot of deaf and hard of hearing characters. And they're using a lot of deaf and hard of hearing actors to play those characters, and I think for starters that's fantastic. And Switched at Birth brings so much light to lives of deaf and hard of hearing people with their the deaf community, but also interactions with hearing people, and there's different levels of American Sign Language use throughout the show. Some people are just starting to learn it because of the characters they've met. Some people are very fluent in ASL. And I think that's really great too, and especially since some of their scenes are completely in American Sign Language. And don't worry, hearing people, there are subtitles at the bottom if you don't know ASL. I just think that's great because a lot of the deaf and hard of hearing actors that star in Switched at Birth sometimes came from working on deaf and hard of hearing media. So I just think it's really cool that they just have such a realistic portrayal and things like that, and I think that the actors like that as well from some of the interviews that I've read. And the third example I want to talk about is Speechless. This is on ABC. This is a newer show, and I haven't seen Speechless yet, but I do follow one of its main characters, Micah Fowler, on Twitter. And Micah Fowler has cerebral palsy, but the character he plays on Speechless has a more severe form of cerebral palsy. And Micah Fowler is just super nice on Twitter. He seems really nice to work with, and I am just so impressed by him. And I can't wait to see the show because according to an interview with the creator, he didn't want to create an issue-based show. He wanted to create a show based around this family and just talk about their lives, which includes the highs and lows of just family life and having children with disabilities and just all of those different coming of age stories. Even though the show doesn't want to be issue based, it does follow some storylines about getting Fowler's character an interpreter for school, and like I said, highs and lows, funny moments and more sad moments about having a person with disabilities in your family, and just a really more rich representation of that. And so, why are the examples I just listed important? For starters, according to tvtropes.com, where I took my tropes for people with disabilities, they also list the disabled character, disabled actor category. And there they talk about how it wasn't really until the 1980s that actors with disabilities were playing characters with disabilities. And that was really confusing and disheartening to me because who knows that lifestyle better than a person with disabilities? And sometimes it's really difficult for people with disabilities to find jobs depending on what their disability is. Like, that's a very specific job that they could be good at that was taken away from them. And now, casting actors with disabilities opens that door back up. And another thing I like about actors with disabilities playing characters with disabilities is that I think that can help the writing and creating process of a show. It can help make sure that there are different stereotypes that are being addressed and taken care of, and just make it a little bit more true to life. Another thing about these shows being on these like mainstream channels and getting more popular and getting more funding and attention is that they can dispel these myths that the public might have about people who are hard of hearing, people who are deaf, people with cerebral palsy, families that have family members with disabilities, or people with Down syndrome, autism, things of that nature. And really dispelling and breaking down those myths will definitely help audience members who have never directly experienced this create more sympathetic and empathetic responses and more educated responses to the lives and concerns of people with disabilities. And that's all I have for you today on this episode of The Gap. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so we can continue this conversation. So today I gave you 3 examples of TV shows that I think do a pretty good job of representing people with disabilities. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, you, as the audience, have power. I'll see you next time.